We mostly talk about horses, on the racetrack on this show, how they're training, how they're racing, where they're going next, who's going to beat whom. But what happens after the races? What happens when they're done racing? What happens when they can't run anymore? Today on Mid-Atlantic Racing Today, we're going to have Bev Strauss, and Bev is the executive director and co-founder of Mid-Atlantic Horse Rescue. She's also a trainer. She's got a few that she trains, 8 of them, I think she told me, that she trains at Delaware Park. But I think her greatest impact will always be her work to promote aftercare, to promote healthy and sound retirements for thoroughbred racehorses. She has Mid-Atlantic has rescued over 2,600 horses in the last 25 or so years. So they've done a lot of good luck. And it's important when you think about it. Horses run from maybe they're 2 or 3 to maybe 7, 8, 10. It's like a real old timer, a geriatric. But then they might live to be 25 or 30. So you've got a lot of years between the end of a racing career and the end of life. And what happens in that period is vital, obviously, to the horses, but it's also critical to the industry, because if we can't care for the horses that we breed, what does that kind of say about us? So this is important stuff. Looking forward to talking with Bev. She's got a great story, too. It's a fun conversation. My name is Frank Vesby. This is Mid-Atlantic Racing Today, powered by the Racing Biz, theracingbiz.com. And today's episode, Delaware Park Today, is presented by our friends at Delaware Park Racetrack and Casino. A little bit later, we'll have Stan Salter, Delaware Park on-air analyst, talk about this weekend's racing and last week and just whatever else sort of comes up. But right now, let's bring in Bev Strauss. Bev, good to see you. Thanks for joining me here on Mid-Atlantic Racing Today. I'm guessing you don't know this, but we're 17 days past 34 years from your first win as a trainer. Did you know that?
No, I had no idea.
So training, it's always been, it seems like kind of a sideline for you. Other stuff is obviously how you pay the bills, but you got off to a pretty promising start there. Your second starter won and paid $80. A horse named Topaz Flash. What do you remember about Topaz Flash?
Yeah. He was just a bay gelding that belonged to a friend of mine. I can't really take a lot of credit for the horse. We basically, my husband and I started, we bought a yearling before we got married, and we actually had him in training and did quite well with him with a trainer up in New Jersey. We did the Jersey circuit, and things sort of didn't work out. We brought him home, and we decided that we would train our own. So we actually had a small stable at Delaware Park. We had a bunch of babies for other owners, and we were bringing them along. And then I got pregnant with my first son. So we sort of stepped back. I was actually running under a friend's name. A friend had stalls down there, and so we had horses under her name, and I was sort of going as I could. So we sort of were that way for a while. Then we stepped away, raising our kids, bought a house, all that. And I guess it was maybe 2015, 2016. We were working with the horse rescue, and you know how the racetrack just always pulls you back.
Every time you think you're out, they pull you back in, right?
So the boys were grown, or almost there, and we just we went and bought a yearling, and then bought another yearling, and so we decided when we came back we would do it for ourselves. We had great owners back in late 80s, early 90s, and then we were running under a friend's name, and then stepped away. But then came back, and so here we are. We basically concentrate on our own horses, homebreds. We've we always put the horse first. So if they don't look like they're going to run at any kind of a decent level, we rehelm them as riding horses, and they're doing really well there. I keep track of all of our babies. So anyway, but we have 8 horses right now at Delaware Park. I don't know why we have 8 horses. It's a lot. We just brought 3 babies in, and We've got a really good guy helping us riding. Years ago, Tom and I would gallop our own, and it really was good. But we're older now, and so we have a great guy from Chile who's riding for us, and so we're getting horses ramped up. We've got one guy who's a perpetual maiden, and I think once he breaks his maiden, he'll go find a home as a show horse. Mm-hmm. We have a really nice 3-year-old filly that we're excited about. She had one start, and unfortunately she bled. So she's sort of on the sidelines for a little while. We've got another filly who hasn't shown a whole lot yet. We'll give her a couple of tries, and then she'll go probably be a show horse. And then we've got the babies. We've got an older horse that we bought from a friend. He claimed him, and he didn't really like him after he claimed him. And I fell in love with this horse. So we ended up buying him from that guy, and he's done really well for us. We've been thrilled with him. So anyway, we're sort of making our way through.
Hey, can I get you to move like to your left a little bit, or yeah, because you're sort of off center. That's better. Thank you. So it's the guy that you that somebody claimed, but you ended up with the horse. Is that little Sebastian?
Yeah.
Who ran third the other day, right?
Oh, we got beat by 2 noses. I don't know if you saw the race. He was out by about 6 and was flying and got caught at the wire. We missed the nod. A foot earlier, he would have had the win. He's a funny horse because my friend claimed him, and then the horse wouldn't train in the morning. Absolutely refused to train. So I always like a horse with a challenge, and he's got a great personality. So we took him on last year. We ran him twice. He was second the first time, and then the second time he sort of tired and finished 5th, and we x-rayed him, and he had some chips in a knee, where we thought he had 1 chip in a knee. So we sent him to Patty Hogan to have the surgery done, and when we went to pick him up, she handed us a vial with about 20 chips. We were shocked. So he had the winter off. We brought him back this year, and again, he doesn't like to train in the morning. He likes to go out and watch. So we've got a great system. He goes the wrong way. He's got a lot of speed. He loves to run, and he's very, very happy. He's very sound now, and so we've sort of been racing him fit. But anyway, we're really thrilled with this last start. That was, I think the jock went a little fast, a little early, and went a little wide coming off the turn. And we lost by 2 noses, but he's happy and ready to run again.
Hopefully you get him next time, right?
Yeah.
And you got a maiden in, Just My Imagination is in this week, right?
Yeah, she's one that just hasn't shown a whole lot yet. I mean, she's a beautiful filly. She's very sweet. We're hoping she shows a little bit, but I'm just not sure. Everyone has a job. I'll never be a ballet dancer. She might not ever be a racehorse. Right. We have to give her a chance. Maybe she'll surprise us. What do they say? Expect the worst and hope for the best. So here we are.
One of my favorite stories that we did, this was a few years ago, there was a horse at Charlestown that broke his maiden in like his 52nd career start or some crazy thing. They stuck with this horse way past when most people would have been like, just
right.
Make this horse go away. I don't want to look at it anymore. But he had become like a barn pet. And as soon as he did, they retired him. They're like, we got his win. We're done. And
right.
Thought that was such a cool story.
That's the way we feel. There you are. So handsome. He's sort of been a perpetual maiden. He's made about 27,000 running second and third, plus the Delaware certified money and Maryland bred money. And, he goes along, he does his thing. Hopefully he'll break his maiden. And after he does, he's totally sound, and he's a big, good-looking horse, and he's very easy to ride. So, we'll plan on retiring him and find him a good home as an event horse or a sport horse.
So you've been, one of the things you mentioned to me, you've been using Gavin Ashton a little bit in the morning, and I think he's riding Just My Imagination. What is it that you like about he was one of our first guests on this podcast. So what is it that you like about the work he's been doing? He
came by when he first got to town and introduced himself. just a good guy, well-spoken, really likes the horses, really thinks about the horses. We were really excited to, of course, after I met him, I went and looked up his record because I wanted to see how he had done. And another friend of mine had used him in Kentucky and really liked him. And he always would stop by, no pressure, anything I can do for you, but totally understood if we were using a different rider on the one horse. And he said, oh, no problem. And we just thought he would suit our gray filly Leodan, the one who we've got a lot of hope for, who bled in her only start. She's kind of a nervous filly, and he got on her and loved her and just really put a lot of thought and time into her. And that's what we like to see. We like our riders to try all the time. We like them to think about the horse, and we've used a lot of really good riders, a lot of good guys out there riding. But Gavin just has been really, always stops by to say hi. And then he took Tyler on as his agent, which was pretty cool. They're a good team. They just, they're a good team. And, we were sort of on the same page with these young horses. And actually, he saw little Sebastian's race, and we talked about that a bit. And, not to necessarily replace a rider, but sometimes you have to try different things. And he just really seems to do his homework. He watches the race replays before he gets on a horse. If he gets on them in the morning, he comes back and he'll give us good feedback. And usually it's what we're thinking, So he's just, good, honest, hardworking guy. We like to see him have the success he's having.
Now you're a pony clubber, right? From way back when. You come by all this honestly, right?
Yeah, I was a graduate A. Pony Club was amazing for me. When we were little, we were in a horsey area, but we did not have a horse. And of course, my two sisters and I were crazy about them. And so we started taking lessons at a local barn. Actually, they had a horse show, and we went to the horse show, just rode our bikes there. It was about 2 miles away, rode our bikes there, stayed all day. At the end of the day, the show was over, and I was hanging out, and the barn manager came out and, said hello, and could see how interested we were in horses. And so he said, well, do you want to come back tomorrow and help us feed? So I rode my bike home, and I told my parents, I have a job. So the next day, my two sisters and I showed up at the barn, and we started working there. And, we would work in exchange for lessons. We eventually got a horse, a really nice thoroughbred that was a son of Nashua, who had been a Saratoga sale stopper as a baby. I think he won 4 races. So we had him, and then we were working to pay for his board. We got paid between the 3 of us. We got paid $1.50 an hour. We had to make up $150 for board, and then anything left over, we got lessons. So, it was a great experience. We spent just as much time as we could at the barn doing anything and everything, riding anything we could. And then a neighbor, somebody moved into the house next door, and she was the DC of the local pony club, Sally Ike. She's a really super woman. She's really involved with the U.S. equestrian team. And she said to my parents, your girl should join pony club. So that was the start.
Was that when you knew you wanted to work with horses as a job?
I always wanted to be around them. I thought I wanted to be a vet just because I didn't want to not be around horses. I was just so passionate about it. So I never thought that I could make a living doing horses. My father wanted me to be a lawyer and a doctor, and I actually spent a semester at med school and then got into law school and didn't go because I was fooling with horses. So anyway, they were always just a passion. I met my husband. I was galloping a horse on the farm, and he was the apprentice. He was a farrier, and he was apprenticing for the guy who owned the horse. So that's how we met, and then we ended up buying a yearling together and had some pretty good luck with that one. Then we ended up getting married and sort of, went from there.
So it goes from there, yeah.
But it's funny because as a kid, my father would often go to Baltimore on business, and so we would go down And then my mom would take us around. We went to Worthington Farms. We visited the Maryland Horse Breeders Association. I still have I had a 1968 stallion issue of, it was called the Maryland Horse at that time. And I had Snowden Carter autograph it. I still have that. I never ever dreamed that I would be involved with Maryland and racing and all of that. It was such a passion, and I'm really thrilled to be able to do that now.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Bedminster, New Jersey.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was very rural then. We rode our bikes everywhere, dirt roads everywhere. We'd leave in the morning and come back at the end of the day after a long day at the barn, and, do it the next day. During the school year, we'd go out after school and we'd work there until dark, and then, weekends. And it was a great background. We had good people teaching us, good old school horsemen. There was a Hungarian cavalry officer, Major Stefan von Vesey, who had come over from Hungary to teach the U.S. equestrian team, and he took us under his wing, and taught us all we needed to know. He would spend hours with me on a lunge line, no stirrups and no reins, just things like that. The opportunities we had. And in Pony Club, we got to ride with some amazing clinicians. Sally Ike was incredible. She's an incredible horsewoman. Just the access we had was amazing. And we worked hard for it, but it was just an incredible time.
I think that this is the first interview I've ever done where the phrase Hungarian cavalry officer came up. So,
yeah, he was a great horseman, wonderful man.
Interesting. So in 2002, you started co-founded Mid-Atlantic Horse Rescue, Save a Couple of Horses, which has obviously blossomed into something quite a bit beyond saving a couple of horses. But what kind of drove that?
We were at Delaware Park. We had one or two horses there, and Ginny Cole, she was my co-founder. She was training. She had a small stable there, and we met through a mutual friend. And I knew she had a dog rescue, and I knew she was very passionate about rescuing animals. And we knew that every Sunday, horses would leave the track with a former pony boy, and he would take them to New Holland, and they would sell the next day. And it was pretty horrifying because, growing up, I thought all thoroughbreds had a home after they were done racing. I always rode them. All of our school horses were thoroughbreds. My friends all had them. So it was a real eye-opener when we moved to Pennsylvania and realized how many thoroughbreds were going through New Holland and selling to slaughter. So when we were at Delaware Park, I got to know Ginny quite well, and we both were aware of what was happening. Horses would leave Sunday night and sell at New Holland on Monday. So we just decided that we would do something. We talked about it for a few months, and she had Paws for Life, the dog rescue, set up as a 501c3. So we just thought we would try to start a horse rescue. It was interesting. I guess it was September of 2002. I went to New Holland. My husband and I had been buying 2 or 3 horses a year at New Holland and then retraining them, selling them on. Okay. And in September of 2002, I went there, and there were like 26 thoroughbreds there that day. So I called Ginny. I said, okay, well, if we're going to do this, today's the day. So we got a little seed money together and bought 3 horses. And then we had a field to put them in. It was 3 acres with a Rubbermaid tub and a shed. And, we had the name. We needed a website. It was just sort of, we jumped in and said, okay, we better get busy.
You got some horses, and you said, now what do we do?
Right. I guess we're a rescue now. And it worked out really well. Ginny is just an amazing horsewoman, and we both worked really hard in the beginning. We saved all of our pennies. We would drive the blood to the state lab in Centerville, Maryland, so we could get a Coggins test for $3 instead of $20, things like that. We've placed our first horse in that December, and then we went and bought one more. And then, it sort of snowballed from there. We would place one horse, go buy one, place 2 horses, buy 3. and just built from there. It was hard because there were always so many thoroughbreds in those days, and it was hard to choose. But we knew that we had to focus on horses that could be adopted out. Just because, if we went for the lame ones that didn't have a future as riding horses, we'd be caring for them still. Right. So it was hard to make the choices, but we did, and we grew and grew and built our reputation. That first year, we actually went and visited with Herb and Ellen Mullis from Thoroughbred Charities of America and said, this is what we want to do. And so they gave us our first grant that year. I think it was $5,000. And Thoroughbred Charities of America has supported us every year since then. And so we've grown to what we are today. The whole landscape of aftercare has changed. Now you rarely see thoroughbreds at New Holland. If you do see them, they're years away, removed from the racetrack. So that's been really rewarding to see that change in the industry.
Yeah, you once said to me that aftercare is part of the whole vocabulary now on the backside. What does that mean?
When we first started, people didn't want to hear about aftercare. I used to write letters to breeders and former owners saying, oh, we know you didn't have anything to do with it, but your horse so-and-so ended up in a kill pen at New Holland, just to raise awareness. And sometimes people would be horrified. Sometimes they would say, well, what do you want me to do? They would be offended. Sometimes they would send money. And we weren't really trying to guilt anybody into anything. It was just sort of what was happening with horses after racing. And again, I had no idea, my husband and I loved racing, and I had no idea about all these horses ending up in terrible places after they were done racing. I thought everybody went on and became pony club horses or hunters or jumpers. And then when we started going to New Holland and saw the numbers of thoroughbreds, we thought we've got to do something. And then we saw the horses leaving Delaware Park every week. And again, I was talking to Janet Ritchie the one day, Tim Ritchie's wife, and she said, the good old days really weren't the good old days. People weren't really aware of what was going on. We just didn't realize. So when we first got started, we were sort of met with pushback. And I remember talking to John Hedinger, who was Aikendale Farm up in New York. He was the president of Blue Horse Charities at the time. And he was trying to get the Jockey Club to just stand against slaughter for thoroughbreds. And I know he was hitting some pushback. And he actually was a great man. He started a rescue up there with horses we were buying at New Holland. There was one day we were there and there were 12 horses that were going to go to kill. And we got his number and called him, and he said, oh, buy them and send them up to me at Aikendale. So that was the beginning of Aikendale Horse Rescue. So he was really an amazing man. And, he was really speaking to the inner circle of the Jockey Club. And the industry. And I think he made some inroads, but still there was a lot of pushback, I think, for all of us. I know early on there was a racetrack. Oh, we don't need a horse rescue here. I won't mention the racetrack. Now they're really big supporters of aftercare, but we got that a lot. These horses don't need to be rescued, because I think people weren't really aware of what was happening or didn't know what to do.
Right. Well, it's not that long ago. A couple of years ago, I read an article from the late 80s where that was in a Sports Illustrated, a mainstream publication, and the trainer was talking about the meat man, and it was It was just a thing. It's okay. The horse is at the, maybe he's lame. He doesn't have any future.
Yeah.
Go to the meat man.
Yeah. And that's, we had one horse that my husband and I had, and he had broken his maiden. He was running 4th and 5th, and we were getting married, and we thought we really can't afford racing right now. So we sold him to a friend who was a trainer. And I told him, okay, if this horse ever needs a place, we'll always take him back. And so we would see him every year at Garden State Park. This was a turf horse. And we'd say, how's he doing? And he was doing well the first 2 years. And then the third year we saw him, I said, "Oh, how's Timmy doing?" That was his barn name. And he said, "Oh, he went bad. I sold him last fall at the Unadilla auction," which made me sick to my stomach because that's just a big slaughter auction, or it was at that time. And, I thought, God, I told you we would take the horse back, and by the time we heard about it, it was way too late. We had another horse that we had, which we sold before he ran, and it was kind of a funny situation, but he ended up getting claimed, and I would follow the horse as he was getting claimed, and his last start was out at Mountaineer, and I called the trainer who claimed him maybe 4 or 5 days later, and she said, "Oh, he came out of the race bad. I found him a good home," which, I said, "Well, can you tell me who it is?" And, I got no response. So that was kind of tough because those are horses that, we had been closely involved with and cared about. So we thought everybody would want to know. And initially people didn't want to know. Now they do. Now, the trainers, I work mostly with Delaware Park and Maryland Racing, and they're all about aftercare. When we first started working the backside at Delaware Park, we had a lot of horses listed, and then I heard from a groom there, "Oh, well, this guy, Mike," I won't go into his last name, he picks up these horses and he gets them a good home. And I thought, wait a minute, and so I told Mr. Mooney, who was the head of racing at that time, and he right away shut it down. The guy's no longer allowed on the backside. I guess he had taken 3 horses out, and Mr. Mooney called the 3 trainers on the outslip and told them they had to have the horses back in the barns that night by midnight, or they would be out of their stalls the next day. And it was amazing because the last one I think arrived at 11:55 that night. So it was really to see that change, and Maryland has always been supportive of aftercare. They've got the great program Beyond the Wire. Everyone thinks about it now, and these, at Delaware Park, we either help trainers find homes for their horses or we take them into Mid-Atlantic ourselves. Same with Maryland Racing. Parks has a good program with Turning for Home. There's Finger Lakes up in New York, and of course the program in New York at Aqueduct, Take the Lead. It's just grown so, and everybody they realize it's part of the industry and it's part of our responsibility. I look back, and when we were contacting owners and breeders and sort of getting pushback or no response, what really made the difference, I think, were the fans. We had a group of ladies, amazing ladies. They were all retired or semi-retired. There were 4 of them who had gotten together because of Smarty Jones, and they wanted to help horses. So they called themselves the Friends of Twilight, and they used to decorate horseshoes and sell them to raise money for us to buy horses at New Holland. And, these are just fans. They weren't horse people at all, but I think that's the thing that started to really drive aftercare is the fans were becoming aware of what was happening after racing. And I think that was really a big push, because they do care. They want to know.
Yeah, no, people, they need to feel like the horse, if they're going to bet on the horses, they need to feel like we care about them at the end.
Right. And we do. And I think most trainers and owners do. There's some areas, some of the country where it's still the old mentality. Aftercare isn't discussed. They don't care. And that's pretty disheartening. But, I think most of the country is behind aftercare and is really watching out for where these horses are going.
Do you think the industry is doing enough?
They're doing as much as they can, or at least the aftercare segment. The Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance was founded, I think, in 2012. And that was a huge step forward. It was kind of interesting because we had bought a horse at New Holland named Wulpe, W-U-L-P-E. And he had been on the Triple Crown Trail. I think he was 4 when we bought him, maybe 5. And I wrote a letter to the editor of Thoroughbred Times, and I just basically said, we bought this horse. We have to start thinking about this. And I got a call from Jack Wolf from Starlight Racing because he said, well, I owned that horse when he was 3. He said, how did you get him? And I said, well, we bought him at the New Holland sale from a kill buyer. And he had no idea what all that meant.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, who has the papers? I said, I don't know. We never get the papers. He said, well, who's the last registered owner? I said, we don't know.
Right. So New Holland, as far as I know.
Yeah. So he actually, got active and decided he contacted a lot of people in his circle of the industry and, got the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance started. I just don't think people were aware of what was happening. They couldn't figure how a horse could come from the Triple Crown Trail to being at New Holland for $500,
Right.
So, the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance has been a huge asset to the industry. We need more funding. We need more farms. It's like turning Queen Mary around. It doesn't happen overnight. And I know that we've got critics who are saying we're not doing enough, but this is the only industry that is focused on the horses after their careers are over. They are working towards, getting every horse in a safe place. Is it perfect? Not yet, but we're getting there. But again, we need more money. We need more funding. We need more farms. We've got the Retired Racehorse Project, which is working on marketing the thoroughbred, which is great. Back when Stuart Pittman, I met him, he was giving a clinic and I brought a horse of mine to ride and he said, I've got this idea and I want to have this retraining thing. So I thought it was fantastic. And we actually brought several horses to his first seminar at the Maryland Therapeutic Riding Center in Maryland. And he did a whole day long demonstration and then that morphed into the Retired Racehorse Training Project. So it's getting there. We're getting there.
Do you feel like Aftercare needs, obviously you said more funding, more farms. Structurally, does it work?
It's working. Can it be better? Always. And I think we're all looking for ways to make things better. I know the industry gets a lot of flack from horses that end up in feedlots and kill pens that have been retired for 10 years or more.
I wanted to ask you about that.
And it's tough. And I know, the retired broodmares, Kyle Rothfuss from Maryworthy Charities in Kentucky is really focusing on them. He's a phenomenal guy and he's got a job that I think is tough because he's taking these older mares that are now retired and finding them homes. He's got, quite a few of his own at his program. Our job is a little easier because we're taking younger horses that are retiring. A lot of them are sound and can go on to other careers. So it's a little easier for us to find those homes than I think it is for the retired broodmares. But, the whole industry, we just need to keep working towards this goal. It's getting so much better. It really is. There's always more we can do and always things we can do to make it better. But we're all working towards that same goal. I sometimes think that Aftercare is still a little bit of the redheaded stepchild. Like I don't know why there isn't more funding from the industry. And I know everybody's, money is tight, the economy is horrible, but, to have more fees in place, more farms invested, more stallion owners invested, more breeders invested. Again, it's a work in progress. And, as I said, there are areas of the country where these horses have no shot when they're done running. Yeah. But fortunately up here in Kentucky and California and Florida, we're all doing the right thing.
You raised something, and I want to ask you about this. And this actually happened to a friend of mine. Like he had a horse, retired the horse, sold the horse for cheap to somebody who said, yeah, my daughter could use a riding horse. And that was true. And the daughter used the riding horse for a number of years. And then the daughter outgrew it or stopped riding or whatever. The guy sold it to a guy who said he would take care of it. And it turned out to be a meat man. Right. And then came back to my friend as this horse of yours is now. And what do we do about that? That seems like a really hard situation to resolve. You try to do the right thing and you end up
Right.
end up being the bad guy, but more importantly, a horse ends up in a bad situation when everybody was acting in good faith.
It's hard because I think the first thing is if you adopt from a thoroughbred, a TAA accredited organization, they'll always have a home. They can always come back to us. I don't care if it's 20 years from now. I don't care if it's because we have a new horse that just came back. He has kissing spines. He's no longer rideable. So if you adopt from a TAA organization, you have that safety net. I think there are 80 some organizations in the country right now. We all track our horses. Every program's different, but we still all go through the same strict protocols for accreditation. So I think, but still things can happen there. Our contract says we do transfer ownership at Mid-Atlantic Horse Rescue. We want you to own the horse. We want you to be vested in the horse. And also for liability reasons, if we give you a horse and we maintain ownership and it gets loose on the highway and causes a wreck, they're going to come after us. We couldn't get insurance for that.
Yeah.
So, we make sure the horse has a great match, but they know the horse can always come back to us. But again, the contract is only as good as the person that signs it. We really hope that these horses, that the owners will honor the contract, and most of them do, but I'm sure they fall through the cracks at times. We had one horse a couple of years ago that we placed him with a really good girl. She did the makeover with him, did really well with him. She sold him to students of hers. And I guess it was maybe 6 years later, he went on sound. And so the owner didn't want to burden us. So she found a therapeutic riding program to take the horse, who instantly sold him to a dealer who brought him to New Holland. So then we got a call saying this horse is at whatever, a dealer bought him a fake kill pen. And we spent $3,500, went down and picked up the horse in Virginia. And I called the woman who last owned him, and she said, I just didn't want to burden you. I knew he wasn't sound anymore. It's like, I wish you had called me,
You could have burdened me.
Yeah, because now it really was a burden. It was expensive to get him back. But we did, and we placed him as a companion since then. But it's hard because people want to do the right thing, and a lot of people are naive. Sure. They think like your friend, the guy's going to give him a good home. Doesn't always happen. So, I think again, accredited organizations are huge. The database that TAA keeps is phenomenal. We track ownership. It's interesting though, because we have to make sure when we're placing a horse that it's a really good match, that it's a horse that person wants, it's a horse that suits them, that can do what they want to do, because that horse will be in the best place ever. I think if you don't make a good match, that horse is at risk. If we have a horse that we're showing to somebody and I just don't think it's ever going to work out, I just say we need to look at a different horse, and they might not be happy about it, but I think it's important to have that matchmaking capability so these horses don't end up passed on down the line because it didn't work out.
What percentage of horses that you're getting off the track are suitable for something other than being a pastoral ornament?
It's getting pretty good now, because I think the horsemen are realizing that these horses have a future, and it's much easier to find homes for sound ones than ones that are not sound. I know Patty Hogan has done a whole series on that one last race syndrome, which has been phenomenal. And I think even the guys at the track that we help list the horses for so they can sell them directly, they're realizing, hey, if this horse is sound and we stop now, we can get money for it. I would say, with our herd, I would say maybe 60% are unlimited. Maybe 30% might have limitations, like not a lot of jumping or trail riding would be fine. And then maybe 10% are pasture pets.
And that's better than it used to be?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it used to be we'd go to New Holland and, if there would be 15 thoroughbreds, we would try to pick through the sound ones. And you'd see bowed tendons, you'd see knees, you'd see ankles. it was pretty disheartening, and it was always hard to walk away from ones that needed that care.
Mm-hmm.
But for us to sustain our program, we had to get horses that we could place and then go back and help more.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always our background. Not to say we haven't taken charity cases. We've got quite a few. But, you know, these horses have a career. I mean, racing is such a small part of their life. And there are people that want them and ride them and love them. And, you know, we've got adopters that only trail ride. We've got up-down riders, you know, women, or I shouldn't say women, but adult amateurs who are learning to ride. And then we've got people who think they want to go to the Olympics. So, you know, we've got horses from A to Z to fit those categories.
And you guys at Mid-Atlantic, you get like a couple hundred horses in a year, right?
Yeah, we adopt out about 100 horses a year. It's actually a little lower now. With the economy, we've had to downsize just a little bit. I think last year we did 80 horses. But we have about 200 horses coming through the program every year. And again, now they're mostly coming from Delaware and Maryland, which is phenomenal. We get histories on these horses. Delaware gives us a certain amount of money every year, and then Beyond the Wire gives a stipend per horse. So that's really helped us a lot. But we've also gone back to pulling horses from kill pens. We've just brought in 3 horses from Mountaineer that were abandoned and neglected, and then we brought in, I think, 9 horses now from Louisiana. I know the kill buyer down there pretty well, and you know, sometimes you just see horses that you've just got to help. And it's expensive to get them from Louisiana up to Maryland, and then they often come with problems. The 2 most recent ones have pretty severe wounds that we're treating. So that's an expensive endeavor, but again, that's, you know, goes back to the whole rescue thing. Louisiana, unfortunately, is one of those areas where aftercare is not talked about at all, and I don't think people really care, which is sad.
Yeah. Why do you think? I mean, if it's in Kentucky, it's in Florida. You said obviously it's all over the Mid-Atlantic. Why would a place like Louisiana not have taken root, do you think?
I don't know. I know that they're not under HISA rule, and I know HISA is a hot point right now, a trigger point in the industry for some people. We won't go there. But I just have a different mindset. Maybe they're just, you know, the good old days. I don't know. But we get horses there that run through auctions, the livestock auctions, and they might have just run a month ago. And a lot of them are thin. You know, I'm not saying they don't have good horsemen down there. Is the economy totally different? I don't know. You know, I think the purses at fairgrounds are pretty decent, and I know
they're very good, yeah.
Good trainers down in Louisiana who do care. There was a horse from Maryland, a nice horse who was an old stake horse who ended up in Louisiana, and a friend of mine used to own him, and she called to say, I want to claim this horse to retire him. And so I called my friend down there, Brent Brickman, and he went and claimed the horse, and, you know, just on my, will you please help, you know, and he
that was Bird's horse.
Right? Yeah.
I did a story on that horse. What was the name of that horse? He won like a couple of stakes for.
No, it's not Galliano. That's, I've got to think.
Oh, yeah. We're all around it.
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
he ended up coming back to Maryland with somebody who used to know him. So, I mean, that was just cool because, you know, Bird didn't know who to call. She called me, and I called Brent, and he was happy to put the money up. She reimbursed him, and he arranged to get the horse to, I think, Remember Me Rescue in Texas. And then somebody from the horse's past adopted him. He's back up in Maryland. So it's really cool. You know, You've got people like that who do care.
Right.
But we just keep seeing these horses down there getting dumped. You know, the guy, he just sent me videos on 4 more horses. And I just said, I can't do anything right now. We are maxed out. We have no money to put in. You know, the Louisiana horses, if it costs us $2,000 to buy them and get them up here, and our adoption fees, if they're sound, are $2,500, you know, we can't financially keep doing it. We do as much as we can. But, it's not, we can't take all the Louisiana horses, unfortunately.
Yeah. No. So you guys have adopted, I think you've rescued over 2,600 horses now.
A lot more than that now. That's an old number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on, update your website, would you? You got nothing to do. Come on.
What I need to do is go through my years and years of spreadsheets and start counting. And I know, we sent a lot of horses to Aikendale. There was another rescue that started. We mentored her. She's no longer in business, but her life changed. But she did quite a few horses as well. So it's been rewarding. It's really a passion, and we've got a great team at Mid-Atlantic. Everybody there is totally focused on what we do. There's no drama. I can't tell you how many great people work for us at the rescue, both employees and volunteers. Our board is amazing. It's just we couldn't do what we do without the help of everybody, without the support of everyone.
All right, I'll let you go here, but if Bev Strauss were, queen of racing and aftercare, and you could just snap your fingers and make whatever happen that you want to happen in the aftercare space, what's the thing that would happen?
Oh boy. Every horse would have a home when they're done racing and beyond. I kind of wish, I know the Jockey Club is working on traceability, and I think that's going to be critical. So we know where these horses are going. But I know that right now when we adopt a horse out, I try to tell people, okay, create the free account with the Jockey Club registry, register the horse in your name. And most of the people in the sport horse world sort of look at me with a blank stare. They don't understand the importance of tracking these horses. And I think that's going to be critical towards the future. I think, if we continue to evolve aftercare, get more support for the TAA, just work harder at, making sure that these horses that are slipping through the cracks are not. I mean, one big problem we have are the fake kill pens. They're all over. These people who go on social media and, this horse is going to ship, and they put exorbitant price tags on these horses, and yet the horse is not going to ship anywhere. And that's a real hot point for...
So it's just a shakedown.
Yeah. I mean, it started years ago. There was a dealer at New Holland who had a rescue who would do that, and he was buying horses just for this other rescue to sell for him, and he still was shipping horses. They just were ones that you didn't see. So a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon there, and there are kill pens all over the country now. And are they legit? Most of them are not. Are the horses in a bad place? Probably. The auction circuit isn't suitable for any horse, let alone a thoroughbred. It's hard because, you get people who are not accredited, who are out there raising money to buy these horses, and then you don't know where they go. And people donate tens of thousands of dollars to rescue horses without knowing what's happening to the horses afterwards. It's the big save. People are throwing money at programs that maybe shouldn't be taking money in. And they say, oh, well, it went to Harmony Haven. I hope that's not the name of a rescue, but, Rainbows and Unicorns Horse Rescue,
Right.
And so people throw money at that horse and at that program, and they think the horse is living, eating glitter and, living happily ever after. And yet they don't really have any idea if that farm is suitable, if the people are knowledgeable, if the horse is in a good place. That would probably be one thing I would love to see, is people stop throwing money at these campaigns on social media without really knowing where it's going. If you donate to Thoroughbred Charities of America or donate it to TAA, the money's being well spent, and that will help build the aftercare spectrum.
And if you could do, you could have your one wish for your 8-horse barn at Delaware Park, what would that look like?
Oh, well, I'd like to finally win a race this year.
That always helps.
They're healthy and they're sound and they're happy. Are they fast? Well, Sebastian's fast. I think Leodan's fast. I was disappointed that she bled. That's never happened before, that she bled through Lasix. I think, her race came right after that. We had all this smoke from Canada.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I think that probably didn't help. But she's happy now and doing well. We'll make sure she's healed up before we run her again. I just want our horses to be happy and sound and come out of the races good and look for the next one. And if you get someone like So Handsome or just my imagination who just say, you know what, this isn't my thing, I know we'll find them great homes afterwards. I love seeing, I get emails and pictures all the time from horses that we've placed of my own, and with their new owners and, blue ribbons. And with one horse who, he won over 100,000 for us, my Danny boy. And he was at the point where he had to start running for 7,500 or a nickel, and I didn't want to lose him and have him end up at some racetrack, so we retired him. And he's with a great gal down near Laurel, Maryland, and her daughter's now riding him. And just to see him out there happy and well cared for and loved, that's what I want for all of our horses. We can win some races in the meantime.
That wouldn't be so bad either, right?
No, it's I always we have such high hopes all the time, and it's a hell of a sport. People love their horses. I see it on the backside all the time. People will feed their horses before they'll eat themselves. It's pretty phenomenal. I know, there are bad people in every facet of every industry, but
sure.
I just think, the people at the track are so committed to their horses and want to see them do well. And, so that's rewarding. That's what we want for our horses. We just want them to be happy and sound and fast. They're not
right.
fast.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I always used to, sort of joke when I owned horses that our horses were slow and hungry. It's like, they're going to be hungry regardless. They might as well be fast if they're going to be hungry.
It's hard because, we don't have a big budget. We did some breeding. The one mare we had actually was a rescue mare. She had been up at Penn National with a trainer who's since been warned off. And she had run over 100 times, made 250,000. And a friend of mine who runs Cantor, Pennsylvania, called me. She said, this mare is stuck in a stall. She runs every 2 weeks. I think 2 years in a row, she had more starts in the country than any other horse in the country.
Oh my gosh.
And this guy would keep her shut in the barn, top door and bottom door closed, would never take her out until he ran her. And she would go every, 10 days, 2 weeks, run. And so my friend Sue called me about her and said, I've got to get this horse. Would we take her? And so I said, sure. And then she disappeared. And we thought, oh, God, we started looking for her at New Holland. And then she reappeared at Penn National, and Sue actually arranged to buy her and send her to us. And when we first got her, she wouldn't go near a barn. She was just a wreck. She's sound. She's a lovely mare. But, I just thought, we're never going to ride her. She's done her time. So we ended up, a friend of mine bought her and bred her, and her first horse was actually kind of a nice horse, and then he got out of the business, so my husband and I bought her. And so we bred her, and, got some nice foals. Leodan is one of her foals. Danny was one of her foals. We've had a couple that haven't made it that are now riding horses, but she's now retired with Duncan Patterson, who's the head of the Maryland racing, the Delaware racing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he had her for a retiree, and so he's got her now. So it's just, we're sort of working with horses like that, which is fine. I mean, we love it. So my husband and I are totally committed. I think we're crazy. We're empty nesters, and we're back with 8 horses at Delaware Park. But we have a really good guy working for us now who came up from Chile, Wilson Vargas, and he's just right there working alongside. He's a jock, actually, and but he does a really good job in the mornings and cares about these horses like we care about the horses.
That was Bev Strauss from Mid-Atlantic Horse Rescue. Next up on Mid-Atlantic Racing Today, Frank Vesby and Delaware Park racing analyst Stan Salter discuss recent and upcoming racing action.
Hey, Stan, good to see you. How's everything going?
It's going well, thanks. How you doing? Good. Thanks for having me on this morning. We're off the turf on Thursday and yesterday, Wednesday. We had about 3 inches of rain on Tuesday. So no turf to start this week. We have a nice feature, a nice $75,000 stake race on the turf for Saturday, the Sussex. Hopefully we'll be able to be on the turf for that. But real quick, I just wanted to mention I messed up a name the last podcast I was on with you. If you will, give me a chance to correct myself. I meant to say Duck Martin, and I should know his name well. I grew up across the street from him. My mom was the farm manager at Belmont Farm, which is right across the street from Worthington Farm. Worthington Farm is where they run the Maryland Hunt Cup, and we were right next to it. And Duck Martin, he's a past president of the Maryland Horse Breeders Association. He's been a top breeder. Him and his wife, Glennie Martin, have been a top breeder in Maryland for a long time. He's master of the hunt out there for the Worthington, for the Green Spring Valley Hunt, which is a pretty prestigious hunt in Maryland for sure. And he also campaigned Lord Gaylord, who was one of the leading stallions back in Maryland back in the 80s. And I I fell in love with thoroughbreds growing up across the street, seeing all the Lord Gaylord babies running around in the field at Worthington Farm. They used to paint all their fences white back in the 80s. I don't know if they still do that, but yeah, I think I was talking about, before I came on that podcast, I think I was talking about Dickie Small and Broadbrush. So I said the wrong name, but his name's Duck Martin. And it was good to see him with a horse that him and his wife and his daughter Nancy and Susie bred a couple weeks ago. And I'm going to keep my eye out for that horse, that Mark Lapita horse with, I believe, with Mike Juralis as a trainer. I seen the horse back in the entries on another day that we canceled. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that horse. If you see Lapidus down in Maryland, or Mike Juralis, I'm pretty sure Juralis was a trainer. Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
Yeah. If you see, all right, you see Lapidus or Juralis, tell him I'm a fan of that horse, and because I grew up across the street from the breeders. So it's Duck Martin, not Dick
Duck
Martin.
Martin.
My bad.
All right. So
You should do it.
Duck Martin.
You should do a story on him out there. They're up there in age, but they've been around for a long time. They had Ronnie Alfano as their trainer back in the 80s, and then they had Jimmy Murphy for a while.
Okay.
Then they went with Rodney Jenkins, and I'm not sure who the trainer is. I don't know if they have any horses running now that they own. There's obviously one out there that they bred, but yeah, good to see Worthington Farm still breeding some nice Maryland breds.
Yeah, I feel like a million years ago, I think I owned a horse that was out of a Lord Gaylord mare.
Okay.
I can't remember what horse that was, but I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah, he was a top stallion back in the 80s, and he was a terrific broodmare stallion as well.
Yeah. So I got to figure that out. I wonder. All these pictures behind me are horses that we owned, and I think one of them is out of a Lord Gaylord mare. So I got to figure that out. All right,
you got a nice wall of win pictures behind you there.
Yeah, it's not as many as we would have hoped for, but
well, it's an easy game, right? Yeah, easy game. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of easy game, let's talk about Irish Maxima last week. On paper, you looked at it, you're like, I don't know how they're going to beat her. Then standing in the paddock before the race, the Dashing Beauty last Thursday, she was spooking at everything. She was rearing up. She didn't want to be saddled. And I said to somebody, like, I think she might be a bet against at this point. She was too good anyway.
Yeah, I've heard she's done that a little bit in the past before, maybe even more so a couple weeks ago here at Delaware. I think John Server said she was just razor sharp, maybe too sharp. She hadn't run in a couple months. So she was, and she's acted up in the paddock before. But yeah, I was getting worried because she was rearing up a little bit, and the state vets have a pretty strict policy. If a horse rears over and hits the ground, whether it's in the paddock or on the track or in the post parade or behind the gate, they're pretty much an automatic scratch. And here she was a 1-5 favored and $150,000 stake. And I have a lot of respect for John's service. I've been a fan of his since Smarty Jones. I used to have him on my radio show. He's a class act, and I didn't want anything bad to happen to the horse, and then and the vet have to scratch the horse. So, John's a good horseman. He got the saddle on. Lance, our outrider, came over and helped with his pony and holding the horse, and they brought an expert valet out who was tall enough to get the saddle on because she was big. She's a big mare. She's every bit of 16.3, maybe 17 hands, and razor sharp like she was, and jumping up in the air, and she was kind of hitting the side of the saddling stalls. So she was being intimidating, but John did a good job, and the valet did a great job, and so did Lance getting the saddle on her, and all good. She warmed up well, and she ran a big race. They ran really, really fast in that race. I didn't see what the buyer speed figure came back, but I'm sure it was pretty big because I believe they went 109 and change in that race. So yeah, what a nice mare she is, and she's sitting on another nice campaign this year. She's close. I believe she's close to $1 million in earnings. What was she around, like 700,000 or something like that?
I think that put her somewhere in the 840 to 860 range. And John told me afterwards, oh, by the way, you mentioned Lance Parrott, the head outrider there. John Service was absolutely singing his praises for the work he did to help them get that horse settled down. And but he also said, possibly, obviously, it's all subject to change or whatever, but possibly next start at Charlestown in the Pink Ribbon, and then possibly after that, come back to Delaware for the Endine or however you say that.
Okay, all right. So she's close to $1 million. I'm rooting for her to get up to $1 million. Yeah, they have some big purses for those stakes at Charlestown, so she'll be tough out there. And yeah, it'd be great to see her back here at Delaware. She obviously loves it here, and what a classy mare she is, and great to see John Service with a real nice horse in his barn.
Yeah. No, it was a good outcome in the end. Good outcome. That's a nice, as you said, real nice mare. So,
good ride by the jockey too. Is Pennington aboard, right? Wasn't Frankie Pennington?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. He gave the mare a nice ride.
Yeah. No, it was that's a nice horse. They're hoping to get to $1 million with her, and then she'll go be a broodmare after that. So
okay, yeah, she'll be a good one.
Yeah. So anyway, so Irish Maxima wins the Dashing Beauty. This week's the Saturday feature, if we could possibly please be on the turf, is the Sussex for Dell certified horses, going 7.5 on the turf. What an interesting group of horses you got here, including, I want to start with the old veteran, the 10-year-old Smithwick Spice for Doug Nunn. What a cool horse that is.
Yeah, he'd been sprinting 5.5 for a long time, and then he stretched the 10-year-old out to a mile last out at Monmouth. That was July 12th in a New Jersey bred allowance race. He stalked the early pace that day, got in front turning from him, and just got beat a neck. But it was a big effort. He ran a 77 buyer speed figure, so he proved he can go around the ground. This race is only 7.5 furlongs, so that might be right up his wheelhouse. What a cool customer he is. A New Jersey bred by Frost Giant out of a mare by Good and Tough. He's run 60 times, 15 wins. He's made almost 800,000. So I'll be rooting for him. There's some other tough customers in here, but he's certainly going to have a lot to say about this race. He'll get a nice stalking trip and be right there turning for home. So, and it looks like his regular rider, J.L. Gonzalez, will ride for trainer Douglas Nunn. So yeah, it's a homebred too, new Spice stable, the owner and breeder. So they've had this horse the whole time. Wow, what a ride he's taken them on for sure. So I'll be rooting on the 10-year-old. There's some other not nice ones in there. Sam Stormy. I ran a couple big races on the Delaware turf last year, and he had a nice win back in March down at Tampa, going a mile on the grass with an 80 buyer speed figure. The Steve, that's the 5 Sam Stormy. The Steve Glaceris horse, the 6 Picture This, a 6-year-old by Munnings, and the Sam Stormy, by the way, by Get Stormy, well, one of my favorite turf sires. But the 6 Picture This by Munnings, he's 2 for 2 on the Delaware turf. He ran an 80 buyer speed figure last September when he won. I believe that was on Owner's Day, a big allowance race at a big price, and then he came back off the layoff, making his 6-year-old debut June 11th here at Delaware, and he won a nice race against Starter Allowance Company with a 78 buyer speed figure. He beat Crabs and Beer in that race. Crabs and Beer is in the Sussex. That horse will be tough, but Picture This obviously loves it here at Delaware Park. So I think those are the 3 main players: the 4 Smithwick Spice, the 5 Sam Stormy, and the 6 Picture This. And if you have to use a 4th horse, you have to respect the 1 Crabs and Beer a little bit. A 7-year-old by Blofeld. He's 0 for 5 on the Delaware turf. He does have a couple big seconds on the Delaware turf. He was 3rd here, 2 back at Delaware. Didn't run very well last out at Colonial, but that looks like a tough 2 other than allowance race he was in. He was 32 to 1 in that race, so maybe he was in the wrong race. But we'll see. We'll see how he does here in the Sussex. But I like the 4, 5, and the 6 mostly in that race.
Yeah, Crabs and Beer getting blinkers back on there. Kerry Bryant. This horse is kind of an interesting horse. Kerry Bryant had him for the kind of most productive period of his career, including a really good second in the dinner party. Then he went to, I think, Chucky Lawrence, and then Kerry and owner Michael Foster claimed him back a couple starts ago, and now they've had him. This will be his 3rd start in the barn. So
yeah,
I always Kerry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I remember Kerry had him and Chucky Lawrence, and it looks like Pecoraro had him for a little bit. That's who Kerry claimed him off of. Chaz Blandford was the owner. I think he switched trainers a couple times with the horse. But yeah, Pecoraro had the horse, and yeah, Kerry claimed the horse for $25,000 back in March.
I've always felt like this is a horse that needs to win the Maryland Million Turf, because like Crabs and Beer, like he has to win the Maryland Million Turf, doesn't he?
By Blofeld, yeah. What a stallion Blofeld's turned in to be for Mrs. Audrey Murray of Murmur Farm. They've had some home runs out there. Of course, they had the Preakness winner Louis Couture's. He was a solid stallion for him. And who was their old the leading stallion that they had? That was even better than Louis Couture's, I think. He passed away a while ago. It was their top stallion they had before. But anyway, they have Blofeld now, and he's the leading sire in Maryland right now, right?
He might be. He's certainly the most, the young sire with the most promise. I mean, Great Notion might still have the most earnings, but yeah, Blofeld, obviously the one to keep an eye. Did the Murrays have? Did they have our emblem for a minute too?
Yeah, they had it. Yep. And he was a sire of War Emblem, and then he went to Kentucky.
Right. That's what I thought. So, all right, this is a fun race. That's the feature Saturday, the 7th race, Sussex Handicap. We're Dell certified runners on the turf. There's a couple other races I know you're keeping an eye on, Stan, and I think one of them is the 4th race, which is a maiden special going 6 furlongs on the main track.
Yeah, for 3-year-old fillies, this is a nice race here. We got a field of 8 in this race. There's let's see, there's 3 first-time make that. 1, 2, 3, 3 first-time starters in there. Mac Robertson most likely has the favorite in here, the 4 Dream Eagle, a 3-year-old filly by Nick's Go. She's had a little case of second-itis. Her last 3 races here at Delaware, she's been second. Maiden special weight races, the last couple races, she was the beaten favorite last time. But she's run a couple 70 buyer speed figures recently, so she's running well. Just needs to get over the hump and turn the light bulb on and find the winner's circle. She'll be the favorite. She'll run a big race. She's going to win one of these days. Jamie Ness has the 5 Yo filly in there, a 3-year-old filly by Yapan, who's 3rd behind Dream Eagle in that race, that maiden special weight, July 21st. There's a first-time starter in the race that's been burning up the track up at Penn National, the 7 Charmed Hour, a first-time starter from the Aaron McClellan barn who's stabled at Penn National, and she has a high win percentage, and she's 1-for-1 coming down here to Delaware this year. And overall, she's won 21 races from 80 starts. She's hitting at 26%. I've known this barn since my time working in the racing office down in Maryland. She does pretty well. This 3-year-old filly is a Maryland bred by Blofeld. Speaking of Blofeld,
yeah.
out of a Malibu Moon mare. The owner is Daniel Lunsford. I think that's my old buddy Danny Lunsford. I used to gallop horses with for Bill and Howard Wolfendale. He was an exercise rider for a long time. He did landscape work also. There's only one Daniel Lunsford as far as I know. But look at the works here on this horse. A couple real fast works from the gate, 47-1 from the gate, June 24th. And then July 11th, 47 flat from the gate. That was the third fastest out of 22 works that morning. And then most recently from the pole, July 20th, about 10 days ago, 47 flat. That was a bullet workout, the fastest of 11 workouts. So some real fast works for this Blofeld first-time starter. The barn, from a small sample, they're about 16% with first-time starters. Inuel Beto will ride. She gets Lasix and debut. I just looked at this for the first time this morning. I haven't had a chance to look up the breeding yet, but looks pretty good on paper. Blofeld out of a Malibu Moon mare.
Yeah. I mean, the mare has had 4 runners to date, and they're horses. I mean, they're nothing tremendous. 0-for-4 first time out, so hasn't been a real win early. But yeah, as you say, I mean, Malibu Moon is a top sire, was a top sire, so there's certainly some pretty good bloodlines there. So do you spread in a race like this with a couple of firsters, or are you going to kind of drill down?
No, I think I might get away with only using 3 here. The 4, 5, and the 7. Maybe one more if I see something in the breeding I like. But this race will kick off the late pick 5. It's an 8-race card this Friday and Saturday. 8 races. So the late pick 5 on Friday and Saturday will start race 4. Yeah, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So race 4 kicks off the late pick 5, and I'll probably just go 3, maybe 4 deep here in this race to kick it off.
Okay. Any other races you want to touch on?
Yeah, race 6 is a nice starter allowance. I don't want to talk about too much turf. I don't want to jinx the turf, man. I'm not there. Every time I talk about the turf, I start getting tornado warnings on my phone. So we'll talk about another dirt race. Race 6 is a 16,000 starter allowance, optional claiming 16,000 for 3-year-olds and upward. Never won 6 furlongs on the main track. The one, Eyes on the Ground for Steve Glaceris. A little interesting. Jose Batista will ride a 3-year-old colt by Cupid. Broke his maiden and a maiden 50 going long on the Tapeta at Gulfstream late May. And then came to Colonial July 10th, 7 furlongs on the main track and a first level allowance. He was 16-1 that day, and he finished last in a 6-horse field, but he only got beat 4.5 lengths. He ran a 65 Beyer speed figure. It looks like Kelly Dieter might have the favored in this race. The 4, Sugar on Fire, ran a good second at this level last time after having a couple months off. Came back on July 18th and stalked the early pace at 21-1 that day and finished well, a game second with a 68 Beyer speed figure. So the 4, Sugar on Fire, is going to be interesting in there. That's a 3-year-old by Frisian Fire. So that horse is going to be the favorite probably. Kelly Breen has a horse in there that's been taking a lot of money. That's the 6, Couches Burning, a 3-year-old colt by Mr. Monomoy. Cipriana Gill will ride a big maiden score at Monmouth back in May, and a maiden 25 going short on the main track. The horse went right to the front and won by 11 with a big 78 Beyer speed figure. Then came back in that was probably a 50,000 2-life at Monmouth late June, was the heavy favorite that day and showed a little early speed and then faltered, did not run very well at all, had some traffic in that race, got steadied early and just ran a bad 4th. And then came back again in a allowance 2-life race, July 12th at Monmouth, was one of the favorites that day. Went to the front from the one hole in a 6-horse field and tired pretty good in the stretch, finished 4th. So that horse has some early speed, but needs to finish better. And it's been taking a lot of money at the windows. I'll try to beat that horse with either the, I think the 4 Sugar on Fire looks awfully tough in this race. I'm not too worried about the 1 Eyes on the Ground. I think if the 4 Sugar on Fire runs that same race again today, he can win this spot.
Yeah, the Dieter barn, pretty sort of low profile last couple of years. They got a couple of nice horses this year. This one is okay. And one that won at the beginning of the meet, Irish Jig, then went down Colonial and won a stake down there. So
I saw that. Yeah, that's a real nice filly. Hopefully we'll get to see her run here again. Yeah, I saw her win. I didn't see the race. I just saw she won down at Colonial. So yeah, Kelly got off to a good start for the meet, and she's due for a win here. I think the 4 Sugar on Fire looks awfully tough in race 6. That horse will be probably the morning line favored.
Yeah, you mentioned Cipriano Gill, who's riding Couches Burning for Kelly Breen. Boy, he's having a good meet. I don't think I knew anything about him before this meet.
Yeah, neither did I. This is his first year here, as far as I know. He was at Tampa over the winter time, and he did okay down at Tampa. And yeah, he's quietly having a solid meet. He's won 20 races, hitting at 19%. He's won 61 races overall for the whole year. So yeah, he's quietly having a solid meet. He's in the top, I think, the top 7, 8 riders right now.
Yeah, no, he's doing pretty well. So, all right, that's the 6th race. And did you want to touch on the getaway race, the 8th?
Yeah, if you can afford it, all that race, because that's a 7,500 2-life filly mare, 6 furlongs. You have a horse in there that's gonna probably be the morning line favorite again, and might be the post time favorite again. But the horse has been the beaten favored her last 4 races.
Right.
2 at the fairgrounds earlier this winter, then 2 at Laurel Park recently. Carlos Mencia claimed the horse for 12.5 off of Stidham 2 back, and the first race off the claim, just an okay 4. So what a money burner that horse has been. That's the 7, the Great Maybe. So I'm not going to pick that horse on top. I'll try to beat that horse with somebody else, but there's not really much else in there. Mike Simone has the 6, All I Do, in there, who's the beaten favorite at this level last time, but maybe the filly didn't like the muddy track last time. Maybe she'll like a fast track better. So I'll have a little respect for the 6, All I Do. And trainer owner Caesar Nambo has the 9, Sweet Summer Love, with Matilda Burnham named to ride. This 5-year-old mare was 2nd last time at this level on a muddy track. So she might be a factor. She doesn't have too much early speed. She might get caught wide on that far turn. She was 0 for 12 last year, 0 for 5 this year. So the 9, Sweet Summer Love, has been a little camera shy. So I'll probably go with the 6, All I Do, on top. But that horse he got beat 3 lengths last time at this level as the heavy favorite. But like I said, that was a muddy track. Maybe she's better on a fast track, but she doesn't have to win. And this horse, the 7, the Great Maybe, who's been the beaten favored her last 4 times, she doesn't have to win. So maybe if you can afford it, take one the sequence and hit the alt button in race 8 and look for a bomb.
Yeah, no, that sounds like good advice. This is a race that's got blow up written all over it, as a friend of ours likes to say. So
I gave out a winning early pick 5 on Wednesday, $32 ticket, and it hit for $540.50 yesterday. I had my best bet. Thank you, brother. My best bet in single won the first race. Paco Lopez aboard for Mike Simone. That mare paid $540, and then I had an $11.40 winner in race 2, a $14.60 winner in race 3, and then a $3.40 winner in race 4, and a $3.80 winner in race 5, and it paid generous. It was a big pool. It was the early pick 5 yesterday was almost $100,000, and it paid $540. So, yeah, I was due to give out a winner. I've given out enough losers, so I was due to give out a winner. So we'll try to keep the hot streak going the rest of the week.
All right. Well, good luck with that. And that's a nice little pick 5 there. $500. Well done.
Thank you.
Hopefully we push people in some good directions for Saturday. 8-race card topped by the Sussex Handicap, the Delaware certified runners. Post time 12:20. Stan, thanks so much. We'll do it again next week.
All right. Thanks, Frank. Have a good week. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
All right, later.
Thanks to Stan Salter. Thanks to Bev Strauss. And of course, most of all, thanks to you for listening or watching. And we hope liking and subscribing to Mid-Atlantic Racing Today. Mid-Atlantic Racing Today is powered by the Racing Biz, theracingbiz.com. And today's episode, Delaware Park Today, is presented by our friends at Delaware Park Racetrack and Casino. You can catch the archives on theracingbiz.com. And we'll be back next week with more episodes of Mid-Atlantic Racing Today. I'm Frank Vesby. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.